What's up, guys? Before we jump into the show, I want to tell you about Chevalier Mortgage. You can call Mike in Virginia Chevalier, and they're not only diehard Broncos fans, but they've supported DNVR for a long time as DNVR members. They're a husband-wife team with over 15 years of financial services experience. Since your home is likely to be one of your largest assets and your mortgage your largest debt, they believe it is vital to consider your full financial picture when purchasing a home. This includes considering your short-term and long-term planning goals, your investments, and your tax situation. Mike in Virginia will work tirelessly to find the best loan for your situation. So visit them at dnvrmortgage.com, where you can also enter to win some sweet DNVR swag. Call Mike in Virginia Chevalier at 303-257-6578.
Number one for the one and only DNVR. Two goes out to Zach, Mace, RK, and the bar. Three for Mr. B in that old trophy case. Number four, we're still waiting for. Bring on the chase. Out on the field, a mile high, Broncos win is our desire. Couple with a breakfast crew and a friend, bleed orange and blue to the bitter end. Come and join us at the DNVR. We are DNVR.
I just love that song. It's so good. I can't get enough of it. I really can't get it. It just absolutely slaps. Oh, good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
What's up, fellas? How's it going?
It is going fantastic. Of course, before we jump into the show, a shout out to MSU Denver Online. msudenver.edu/online is the place to go to check out all they have to offer. Really fantastic stuff over there. If you're looking for an online education to finish off that degree, there's not a better place to go than MSU Denver. So shout out to MSU Denver and go over to msudenver.edu/online today.
My boys, what's up? Of course, week 2 of Broncos football kicking off today. Looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers, but also, man, we are coming off a big time win in the Mile High City with the Denver Nuggets.
Fraud City, baby. No one gave them a chance. No one gave them a chance. I'm sure you've seen the screenshot now of the 19 ESPN reporters. Not one of them even had Clippers in 7. All in Clippers 6, 5, or 4. Not a single person giving the Nuggets a chance. And, man, that makes it that much sweeter.
Well, in their defense, how many of them were based in L.A.? As I was looking at that, I'm like, See a lot of people from their L.A. studio shows on here. little bit of Homer bias, I think, that was filtering that in. But it's good to see the best laid expectations of the L.A. syndicate go awry. Yeah, you're stuck with the Nuggets now against the Lakers. Enjoy.
Yeah, the Nuggets, a lot of people are worried, there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there of, the Clippers are going to get the whistle and they want LA so bad that they're going to make sure it happens. And the Nuggets left no doubt. They didn't leave it up to the officials. They just went and punched them in the mouth repeatedly until they finally begged for mercy and the final whistle blew. But man, that's as good as it gets. This is we talked so much about the Nuggets last night at the bar and on the DNVR Nuggets post-game show, but this is the Nuggets Rocktober. It's just one of those special runs.
Yeah, it is without a doubt. I mean, the only team ever to do what they've just done, and now they get to face LeBron. And man, what a series it's gonna be so much fun.
It is gonna be fun, but we've got Broncos to talk about here today, and the news coming out today. It's for the most part good news, but it's not all, I guess, good news. AJ Bouye is not going to have surgery. That's the good news. The bad news is, of course, that he's going to miss multiple weeks or at least 1 week, probably multiple weeks. And guys, this is Ben Roethlisberger and Tom Brady back to back. It's not going to be easy for the Broncos to sustain this loss.
And that's the huge bummer about it. Short term, this is bad news. Long term, good news. You're not losing him for the season or for months on end. But short news, this is tough. I mean, he's your highest paid cornerback. This is a guy that you brought in to, be an upgrade over Chris Harris Jr., who's been a staple in this defense for so long, of course. And now you're without him. And you're not just without him, Ryan. It's like you said, you're without him going against 2 future Hall of Fame quarterbacks, which absolutely stinks.
Yeah, and the other thing, of course, there's a lot to be positive about with how Michael Ojemudia and Essang Bassey did in their debuts Monday night, their entire NFL debuts, let alone with the Broncos. But now you've got some film on them. So as well as they did, there's going to be a lot of study going on of those two in Pittsburgh, in Tampa Bay. So this is where the challenge for every young player always lies. What do you do after that first game when they're able to get some film on you, able to break you down and figure out your weaknesses and try to attack those? So it's a big test for the young guys.
Yeah, I mean, Essang Bassey's really been thrown in the fire. Vic Fangio, a couple days before training camp ended, threw him out there with the first team to see if he would, quote, pee his pants. And he didn't. He was fine. And now the first game of his NFL career, he's thrown out there. But, it's against Ryan Tannehill, so a nice little stepping stone for him. And now it's not just his first road game in the NFL. It's going up against Ben Roethlisberger, who can put up, 400 or 500-yard games if he wants.
And the other thing is Ben, even though he is not fleet of foot, he still can buy time. That's the thing about him. He's a big guy and he's not going to take off and run, but sort of like Dan Marino back in the day, he can buy a few seconds by moving forward, moving back. So you've got to hold your coverage longer against Ben Roethlisberger still than you would against most quarterbacks. So here, kids, here you go.
Yeah, welcome to the NFL, guys.
It's really interesting to me because 2 weeks ago, if you would have asked me what position are the Broncos least equipped to handle injuries, I probably would have put cornerback as one of the ones that was really high up there. Now, all of a sudden, you've got Michael Ojemudia flying all over the field in week 1, making plays. Should have had an interception if it wasn't for a, questionable call. We talked about it yesterday. The call was the call, and
highly questionable, as Vic Fangio said.
Yeah, exactly. Oj looked great. Bassey looked great, and our friend Seth Medvin of Broncos PR just tweeting out that he played the second most snaps of any undrafted player in the NFL yesterday on Sunday and Monday. So that's a great stat for him. But so those two guys give you a little confidence, and then that you have Devante Bosby just waiting for you on the practice squad, which I didn't think he should have been there in the first place. I think he's a starting caliber player in the NFL. So I never would have thought I was saying this, but I feel pretty comfortable with how the Broncos are going to do this. On top of the fact that Vic Fangio has shown a skill for lack of a better term, hiding cornerbacks inside of his defense. Not letting a young guy or a guy who's lacking experience get exposed in a game.
Yeah, it's very true. And it's also scary just to say that Vic can do that. But we have seen that Vic does a very good job of that. And Ryan, you also have Devante Harris, who it seemed like he was really in the lead for that third cornerback spot throughout much of training camp. He didn't play a single snap on Monday night, and you still have him available to use. So I would expect Devante Bosby to step up from the practice squad and be activated to the 53 to truly replace Bouye. But man, you're right. It's crazy the depth that the Broncos actually have at cornerback. We knew they were going to be cutting a player. We didn't expect it to be Bosby, and it's good that he fell to the practice squad because now they're going to need him. Yeah,
absolutely. And so now you're going to have to call him up, and you're going to get to go up against Ben Roethlisberger, who, he's very slow, but he could still throw the ball pretty damn well.
Can still throw the ball well, and of course, Juju Smith-Schuster looked outstanding. Now it's not as deep a receiving core as he had a couple of years ago, but it's still potent. And that entire offense Monday night, it's against the Giants, so don't put too much into it. But looked energized compared to where it was last year. And that offense, even without Roethlisberger, was enough to keep them in the playoff hunt for most of the season, despite having to play with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges. I mean, what did it say about Paxton Lynch that he couldn't even beat out Duck Hodges to get any playing time in Pittsburgh? And now, of course, Paxton's out of football. So energized. That said, back when the schedule came out, thought, well, if there are fans in the stands, it could be emotional, could be working against the Broncos because Ben Roethlisberger's back at Heinz Field, back in front of Steeler Nation. But you're not going to have to deal with that. You'll have to play at Heinz Field, but you're not going to have fans in the stands. So just as I think the Broncos were hurt on Monday by not having that support, especially when they had the Titans backed up deep in their own territory when the crowd would have been normally going bonkos. Well, the Steelers aren't going to have that kind of moral support. So maybe that's going to help the Broncos out too, as they try to negotiate life without Bouye.
You're really trying to make bonkos a thing, aren't you?
Well, I wouldn't mind if it did. I'm trying to keep it alive. I just wish that they actually wouldn't have canceled my order. I wanted that bonkos hat.
Oh, it's such a, it's like if you get in before the buzzer,
yeah,
they should have to send it to you.
Yeah, I still have the screen capture of my order and being confirmed, and then a few hours later, no, sorry, you're not getting your bonkos hat.
Or they should have reached out to you and said, like, just so you know, it says bonkos. Do you still want it?
Yes.
And basically said, "I'll take them all." Every single one of them.
Give me the lot.
I'll take them all and I'll sell them on eBay for twice the price.
But yeah, you're right. That's as good of a home field advantage as there is in the NFL there in Pittsburgh, and you're going to get to dodge that. And it's almost like, okay, if you steal one there, then you get to come home and you'll have 5,700 fans in the stands. And I think that people will be surprised the impact that even 5,000 fans can have on the game, just, creating a little bit of ruckus and giving the team some momentum. Interesting,
because there were 500 fans on Monday night, and I know that's 10 times less than what they're going to have. I'm not so sure. Now, I hope that does create a little bit of a home field advantage, but guys, how much does this hurt not having AJ Bouye against the Steelers? Because kind of the feeling I'm getting from you guys is the way Vic Fangio calls the defense, the way the depth is at cornerback, that it's not that big of a deal. Is that how you feel?
It is how I feel. I think they have the guys that can handle this. Now, Juju's going to be a problem, but Juju's going to be a problem no matter who you have out there. I think Broncos fans will remember, like, what was it, 90-something yard touchdown that Big Ben threw to him when Bradley Roby was covering him. And so he's a great player. He's going to make things difficult no matter what. But beyond him, Deontay Johnson is a nice player, but not so nice that I don't think the Broncos can cover him with what they have left. And the Steelers don't have too big of threats at the tight end position. So I think the Broncos can handle this group without AJ Bouye. It's going to be difficult, and you might have to lean on your offense a little bit more. But I don't think it's one of those things where you start looking at the guys they have out there and the guys you have out there and say, all right, we're going to have to get lucky here.
Well, they're deeper at tight end now. They have Eric Ebron in, even though Ebron didn't really do all that much on Monday night, of course, and he pairs with Vance McDonald. So they can cause some problems potentially there if they can get Ebron uncorked. The concern I have is that, again, young guys, they're gonna study the film. They're gonna try to find the weaknesses. Another concern I have, guys, is that you want the Russian cover partnership in this defense to work. And Monday night, we saw the coverage, but we didn't see much of a pass rush. We only saw the one sack from Jerry Atakchu, and Bradley Chubb still working his way back. And I'm concerned about the pass rush and its ability to force the kind of errant throws that can help out young defensive backs that are still finding their way out there. So it's kind of the big picture that I'm concerned about of, okay, how many injuries can you afford to absorb? Because you've already taken the hit in the pass rush without Von Miller and with Bradley Chubb still working his way back. Now you're going to take the hit in the secondary with AJ Bouye not out there. At what point does it push you over the edge to where it causes real problems?
Yeah, I mean, how many players do you lose where Vic can't fill a hole? And I'm afraid that's kind of the territory that we're getting into, because this is your highest paid cornerback. You lost already with Vaughn. You lost, obviously, your highest paid player on the entire team. Bradley Chubb, Vic Fangio admitted yesterday, he's still not where he is. How much weaker? Mace, I completely agree. How much weaker can this defense be? And Vic continue to plug these holes? And I do think that it's a concern, because AJ Bouye was playing incredibly well on Monday night before he got hurt. Now, his replacements came in and did very well. I'm just concerned of the next step that the Broncos are taking in their opponent, going from Ryan Tannehill, where they're handing the ball off 31 times to Derrick Henry, now to a team that may not have James Conner, so they may not be able to rely on their run game. So it may be more on Ben Roethlisberger's shoulders. And man, we know he can sling it around. So I like the depth, but just when you lose your top guy, that does give me a good amount of concern, especially then the week after you don't get to play Ryan Tannehill again. It's an even better receiving core than you're playing this week. And of course with Tom.
And yeah, that's the thing with Tampa Bay. It's not just Tom Brady that you're talking about. It's if they can get Mike Evans healthy. Now, he didn't look healthy on Sunday, even though he played. He had one catch for 2 yards. But it's Chris Godwin. It's O.J. Howard. It's Rob Gronkowski. It's Cameron Brate. It's getting into a pick your poison mode in terms of all the targets that the Bucs have. And so that's where this concern gets exponential. Another couple of guys that are going to have to step up are the safeties as well. And one of the reasons why Vic Fangio's defenses have been able to get by with less than A-level cornerback talent over the years is because they've been so strong at safety, both in Chicago and in Denver. So the guys on the back end got to have better communication and better night than they did Monday.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to lean on those guys. And yeah, you're right. The Tampa Bay one is a lot more daunting to me than the Steelers team is. Now, again, the Steelers have players, and a lot of guys made plays for them in the passing game in that Monday nighter. But you're going to be really hoping that somehow AJ Bouye can get back for that Tampa game, because they're one of those teams where you start looking, you're like, how many guys does this team have? How are you possibly supposed to cover all these guys, especially when you're down guys at the corner position?
Well, if he goes on IR, you're talking about 3 weeks. So that would be the Steelers game, Bucs game, Jets game at a minimum.
Has that been said yet that he's going on it?
Every indication is that he is going on IR. I mean, we'll see if it gets finalized over the course of the day, but that sounds like a direction the Broncos are leaning in. And if he doesn't go on IR, he could be week to week. I still don't, based on what I'm hearing, I don't expect him back. Even if he doesn't go on IR, I don't expect him back for the Bucs game. And I would say the Jets game is probably a stretch. So I think realistically, what you're thinking is the Patriot game.
Yeah, and especially the Jets game is a short week. So
right.
Do you want to rush him back, or do you want to give him those extra 10 days before you have the Patriots game? That's what I'm hearing as well. And here's the thing is the Broncos don't really have to make a move now. They may wait a couple of days. But if you want to bring Devante Bosby up, then you would need to place Bouye on IR, or you could just frankly cut someone. But that's why you would do that.
Or if you, and this means using one of the 4 opportunities to move a guy up or down. I mean, it's possible that, and why maybe you think, okay, let's not put AJ Bouye on IR. You could just call Devante Bosby up from the practice squad and have him be one of the 4 guys, and then send him down.
Now you can do that.
The waivers.
You can do that. You can only do that twice with one player, though, before they're exposed to waivers. So if you do think he's going to be out for 3 games, which is even less than 3 weeks from right now, I personally wouldn't mess around with that, just because what if you need him later in the season for a game or 2? Because I know someone could scoop him now, and they didn't even put the safe play on Bosby last week on the practice squad. They didn't even protect him. So maybe they just don't care if he gets scooped.
Well, you're only concerned about protecting him if you're going to bring him up, because the whole thing about it is being able to bring him up and then not have to send him back down.
Right.
Right.
When
Someone
so
could
when you
scoop
have
him
him
now,
on,
though.
yeah, someone could scoop him, unless he's one of those four. Someone could scoop him anytime, but you're also making this decision based on who you think you might need to call up and then send back down.
The Broncos' relationship with Devante Bosby is so weird to me. Like, every time he plays, he makes plays, and like, I feel like everyone else likes him more than Vic Fangio. I don't know. It's weird.
I was gonna say the Broncos' relationship or Vic Fangio's
Fangio, yeah.
relationship.
but the fact that he's unprotected on the practice squad shows you that like Elway might agree. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
We've got many days before our prediction pod here, but I'll just say it right now. My prediction is that Bosby has an interception in the game on Sunday.
Ooh,
Dicey.
wow. So not only does he jump to the active roster, I guess first, not only is he a protected practice squad player, he jumps to the active roster, then he jumps Devante Harris because Devante Harris got no snaps on Monday, and then he plays, and then
he
gets
jumps
a pick.
a route.
Wow, I love it. I love that prediction.
I mean, you figure that you're gonna have to play a mix of guys. If they don't play him, then I guess I'll go back to having to trust in Vic Fangio's eyes. But yeah, I think like you said, jumps to the roster, jumps onto the field, jumps a route.
I love it. I love it. Hey man, if anyone in this cornerback room could do that, I mean that's the guy that I would put the best odds on.
100%.
And it's crazy because he's on the practice squad.
Well, interesting stat, guys. Ben Roethlisberger has thrown at least one interception in every regular season game he's played against the Broncos over the years. Not the postseason, unfortunately. And let's try to forget that the 2005 AFC Championship game ever happened. But in the regular season, he has.
That's so long ago.
That's what I was going to say.
I know.
How crazy is that? Like, think about that team of Broncos.
Yeah.
And think about all of the guys who are on that team. And imagine someone on that team being on the current team. It's like incomprehensible. And yet, this 15 years after that game, you're facing the same guy at quarterback.
Well,
just think about how many quarterbacks the Broncos have had since then.
Yeah.
I mean,
Plummer, Cutler, Orton, Tebow, Chris Sims. Don't forget that he made a start.
I wish I could forget that.
Peyton Manning, Brock Osweiler, and then you get to the carousel. Trevor Siemian, Paxton Lynch, back to Brock Osweiler, Case Keenum, Joe Flacco, Brandon Allen, and finally Drew Lock. But hey, when you find that guy,
insane.
He's somebody that can connect the eras. Of course, it also shows you that quarterback, if you keep him upright, just how long he can last. And then my mind drifts to, oh God, we might be talking about Patrick Mahomes against the Chiefs in 2033.
Oh gosh.
But it's so crazy. 2035 in this comparison.
Yes.
And it's like, you think about like Champ Bailey. Okay, he's the guy who was out there in that 2005 game. Not only is he done with his career, he's already in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is Jerome Bettis played in that game, and he's a Hall of Famer, and Hines Ward is already somebody who's been a finalist for the Hall of Fame. It's crazy. I mean, and it's from another time almost as well. A different era of football compared to what we watch now.
I was just going to say, like, when I think of Jerome Bettis, I imagine, like, NFL Films music playing under, like, a grainy slow-motion run. And, like, those two played together. It's just crazy.
And also, you think about Mike Shanahan. I mean, that era ended since then. Then he went somewhere else. Then he came back, and the relationship has been mended all in that time.
Oh man!
I mean, I'm just looking at this: John Lynch, Champ Bailey, Tom Nalen, Rod Smith, Mike Shanahan coaching, Jason Elam kicking. So literally 6 Ring of Famers.
Wow!
Can we figure out
that game?
Can we figure out the person who played in that game other than Ben Roethlisberger, who's the last one still standing in the league? I know there's probably none other than Ben, but who who stick around the longest.
Yeah, that's a good question. So does this guys, does this mean that Ben Roethlisberger is experienced and polished coming up against the Broncos in week 2? Or does this mean he's old and washed up?
He's not washed quite yet. Now, in terms of getting pressure on him, he's not the same guy that he used to be. Like there was a time when he was simply unsackable. And he's not that anymore. He still has, that in that frame that is just an absolute statue in the right way back there. But now he's also a statue in the wrong way, where you can definitely knock him down if you get there, and you can get pressure on him, and he's not going to evade much with his feet. So the challenge here for the Broncos, and it's almost so obvious now that you're going to have corner problems, at least injury problems at corner. It's so obvious how important it is to get pressure in this game. And I think, for Vic Fangio, it almost makes his job easier. Like, that you're thin at corner. You know that he can't move. You have no choice but to bring pressure as much as you possibly can in this game.
So with that means kind of leaving these young, inexperienced cornerbacks on their own, with obviously the hope that Ben doesn't have the ball for 5 seconds back there, so they don't have to cover the route twice. So why that instead of the opposite of saying, crossing my fingers, I hope Bradley Chubb can be good and Jarrell Casey can get there, but we're dropping Alexander Johnson, Josie Jewell back in coverage to help these guys? Because
you just said those guys' names. It's Alexander Johnson and Josie Jewell. We're not talking about guys who are going to help you very much in coverage. Now, I will say, I think it was the first third down snap for the Titans. The Broncos brought out 6 defensive backs, and they got some pressure up front, and they got a stop. And there is something to be said for that as an idea too. To me, Ben is still, he's still got that, pinpoint accuracy. He's still got such great touch that he's still going to find ways to beat you unless you make him, sit on his back most of the night.
And even though he's slow, he still feels the pass rush well. And that's one of the things that's always been innate about him, is his ability to sense when pressure is coming and just do one step forward or one step back or a couple little shuffle to the side, because he just has that awareness. And then you compare with like Ryan Tannehill on Monday night, who gets hit, and he's lucky he brings the ball in, because it looks like he doesn't even sense contact coming until it's right there on him. So that's the other thing you have to deal with Roethlisberger. He's always had that preternatural feel for a pass rush that renders it ineffective, even though he's a relatively stationary target back there.
Yeah. It's one of those things that pretty much all of the greats have.
Yeah.
It's just that internal clock, that sixth sense, that pressure's there. Man, quickly on that sack that you just mentioned. So early in the game, Atachu goes for the ball, and doesn't get it, and somehow Tannehill gets the ball off and escapes the sack. Then later, Atachu comes completely blindsided, and I was just like, just grab one of his arms. You don't you can still tackle him. You don't even have to strip it. But you saw on the replay, he got hit. The ball came out of his hands because he wasn't expecting it, but both of his hands were there, so he just caught it again. I was just like, oh, Jerry, just take that left arm as you're tackling him and just rip it away.
It almost looked like the contact guided the arm with the ball toward the other hand to secure it.
Lucky.
It was just when that hit happened at first, I'm like, that ball's got to come out, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
everyone at the bar was saying, if that's Von Miller, that ball's out. And
well,
despite how great I thought Atachu played, I kind of agreed with that one.
If it's Shaq Barrett, that ball comes out too. He was also really good at that.
It's true. Okay, one other note here from a news perspective that I saw coming in from Mike Kliss. He said Philip Lindsay's waiting on a second opinion, but given turf toe and running back position, don't be surprised if he's out past a week or two. Oh, man, that one sucks.
Yeah, it does. It does. And John Elway is probably saying this is exactly why we went out and paid $8 million. Now, I'm not saying that that's right, but that's what John Elway is saying right now. And guys, I mean, this is a very good day to be thankful for Melvin Gordon. because while we liked what we saw from Royce Freeman in training camp, boy, if you were without Phillip Lindsay and you didn't have Melvin Gordon, then everything is on Drew Lock's shoulders. And we know that it's going to take some time, especially without Courtland Sutton, which may be the case again this week. Man, it's a good day to be thankful that John spent $8 million on Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, and that hung on to Royce Freeman, who did reasonably well in a short burst, and maybe we see a little Devante Bellamy this week.
I was going to ask you, what do you think of the idea of using Devante Bellamy in some of the same ways that you used Phil in the combination of having two backs out on the field? Do you still feel like that's a dangerous combo, or do you go more back to, hey, if we're going to have, guys on the field, we want to have more receivers now because that gives us a better chance?
Well, if they gave Deontay Spencer a few snaps last week, as they did, there's room to give Devante Bellamy a few snaps as well. Find some packages that work for him. Now, that being said, you're not going to want to play him very often, and because he is a long way from being effective in pass pro, you're putting him out there just to provide some speed and just to provide a change of pace. But that's it.
Devante Bellamy in a year or two, or even maybe a couple of weeks, maybe you do that, but it's not going to be anything the same what they did on Monday night. I mean, you open the game with pretty much your first series being those two guys on the field being creative. You're not going to do that. What I would be interested in, does this bring Albert Okwuegbunam up and give him a jersey so that you just have another weapon on the field? I know obviously he wouldn't be a running back, but maybe he's a guy you could line up at tight end and do some, at fullback and do some creative things with him out of the backfield.
I like that idea. It sounds creative, and until I see them get boring, I'm going to give Pat Shurmur the benefit of the doubt that he will be creative in those ways. I was thinking about this yesterday, and this is a tough one to swallow. I think one of John Elway's big philosophies in building this particular team was doubling down on strengths. You brought in Bradley Chubb to add with Von Miller and double down on your outside linebackers. You brought in Melvin Gordon to pair with Phillip Lindsay to double down on your strength at running back. You brought in Jerry Jeudy to go along with Courtland Sutton to double down on your strength at wide receiver. And in week 1, you had just one of those combos for half of the game. That's just so painful that basically what I think was John Elway's main, objective here is to build dominant units. And the only one you had out there in terms of dominant units was the safety group. And they weren't even constructed in the same way as some of the other ones. But the safety group also didn't have a great game. It's just it's a shame that you didn't get to see the full force of those dominant units that John Elway has created.
Yeah, it's really true. And how long will it be until we get to see those dominant groups, and especially see those dominant groups play well together? That may be the key to whether it really is a slow 0-3 start or whether they get clicking soon.
Yep, absolutely. All right, you guys got anything else here for the live portion?
I think that's it. I think we nailed it.
Yeah. I think my dog is at my door. One of my dogs is at my door, so obviously sick of being ignored here.
All right, well, we're going to take this over to the podcast format for the comment section. Thanks to everyone who tuned in to this live portion. Shout out to everyone who's listening on YouTube. Hit us with a thumbs up. Hit us with a subscribe. There's a little bell next to subscribe. You can get a notification anytime we drop some new content on here. And, of course, if you're listening on the podcast format, we appreciate all reviews on iTunes or wherever you listen. We've been getting some great ones recently, so thanks to everyone who's been doing that. But for this live portion, that's going to wrap it up. If you're listening on the podcast, well, you won't notice any break.